You work 60 hours a week. You wake up early, you stay late, you take on more than you should, you say yes when others walk away, you follow every rule, hoping it will take you somewhere, you give your time, your health, your energy, all for a job, all for a dream that's always just out of reach. You tell yourself it's worth it. You tell yourself that being loyal, honest, and hardworking will pay off, but then you look around. You see others rising, people who lie, cheat, cut corners, talk more than they work. They have less skill, less effort, less character. But somehow, they live the life you thought you earned, and you ask yourself, what did I do wrong? But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe you should be asking, what lie have I been told? Since you were a child, they told you that hard work always leads to success, that if you just grind long enough, someone will notice, that your effort will be rewarded. But what if that idea was never true? What if that promise was just a story made to keep you quiet? Friedrich Nietzsche, the German philosopher who tore down illusions, once said, "The kind of work people praise for being full of sacrifice, obedience, and humility, it's not noble, it's not sacred, it's a trap." He called it spiritual slavery. A system designed not to lift you, but to chain you. Because here's the truth, ugly and raw. In a world ruled by power, morality is not a guide. It's a leash. You were trained to believe that being good would protect you, that following the rules would reward you. But life isn't fair. Life is brutal. Life is political. And this world doesn't reward virtue. It rewards control. Not the value you create, but the value you control. Why does the nurse who saves lives get paid less than the influencer who sells fake success? Why does the man breaking his back in the sun retire broke while a hedge fund trader walks away rich? Because the system isn't broken. It's working exactly how it was designed to. You were told hard work matters. But the truth, hard work without power is a cage. Nietzsche didn't tell people to be lazy. He didn't worship selfishness. What he attacked was the idea that obedient suffering is somehow holy, that the more you endure, the more righteous you are. He called this belief slave morality. It's the mindset of people who have no power, no control, so they tell themselves that their suffering is meaningful, that their sacrifice is good, that their pain makes them pure. But pain without purpose is not noble, it's just pain. If you've done everything right and still feel stuck, you're not broken. You're waking up. You're starting to see that this world wasn't made to be fair. It was made to serve those who control it and those who rise. They're not always the smartest or the kindest. They're the ones who understand how power works, who use it, shape it, and take it without waiting for permission. Ask yourself, what if working harder isn't the solution? What if it's the trap? What if this idea of moral labor isn't your salvation, but your prison? As long as you keep believing that virtue alone will save you, you'll keep grinding, while someone else rewrites the rules. Look around you. If hard work really led to success, then why do the hardest working people struggle the most? Think about the janitor cleaning hospitals at 3 a.m., the nurse skipping lunch to care for patients, the delivery driver racing through traffic to bring food to strangers, the trucker sleeping on the side of the highway. These people hold society together, and yet they live paycheck to paycheck. They worry about rent. They can't afford to get sick. They sacrifice everything and still barely survive. Meanwhile, some guy making TikToks in a rented Lamborghini is making more in a day than a nurse earns in a month. You feel it. You've seen it. This isn't some rare glitch in the system. This is the system. The truth is, labor builds the world, but labor doesn't control it. The ones who control it, CEOs, investors, politicians, media giants, they don't sweat. They don't bleed. They don't grind until their backs break. They move money. They move narratives. They move people. They live in the world of leverage, where influence matters more than effort, where perception is more valuable than production, and where owning something is far more powerful than building it. We've built a system where power matters more than pain, where capital earns more than sweat. And that system is not an accident. It's by design. It's tempting to believe it's unfair by mistake, but there is no mistake. The game was never meant to reward the moral. It was meant to reward the powerful. Physical labor can be replaced, automated, outsourced, devalued. But control scales, control over minds, over money, over systems. A nurse can help one person at a time. A hedge fund manager can move billions with one decision. And the system, it rewards scale. This is where the lie gets even darker. You were told that suffering is noble, that the quiet servant is the true hero, that enduring pain is a badge of honor. And yes, those people, the workers, the builders, the helpers, they are the backbone of society. But being the backbone doesn't mean you get the rewards. Being moral doesn't pay the bills. Being righteous doesn't grant you power. While the working class is told to be humble and grateful, the elite are trained in power, in law, in strategy, in domination. They don't follow rules, they make them. They don't serve, they manage. They don't wait, they take. So ask yourself, if hard work is so noble, why is it so powerless? Why are the most essential people also the most disposable? Why does society praise labor, then give the rewards to someone else? Nietzsche believed it's because the moral system itself was created by the powerful, not to set people free, but to keep them obedient. It wasn't built for truth, it was built for control. The message is clear: serve without question, sacrifice without reward. Be humble, and maybe you'll get your prize someday. But that someday, it never comes. It's the most powerful lie ever told, the perfect chain, because it keeps people chasing a future that was never meant for them. So if hard work doesn't lead to power, then what does? And are you willing to unlearn the lies you were raised on? Are you ready to see the world not as it should be, but as it is? To see morality not as truth, but as strategy? Nietzsche drew a brutal line between two kinds of morality: master morality and slave morality. Slave morality is built on fear, on guilt, on submission. It tells you to be small, to suffer quietly, to stay in line. Master morality, it's built on strength, on self-worth, on creation, not obedience. The people who shape the world don't ask for permission. They don't wait to be rewarded. They act, they lead, they build their own values. And if you want to stop being a servant in someone else's system, if you want to stop trading your time for empty promises, you must wake up, because until you see the truth, until you let go of the lie, you'll keep grinding for crumbs while others feast off your labor. Nietzsche didn't say to give up on effort. He said, stop worshipping effort that goes nowhere. Stop bleeding for a system that feeds on your sacrifice. Stop calling weakness a virtue. The world is not kind. It never was. But once you see it clearly, once you see through the lie of moral labor, you get to choose. You can keep working for a dream they sold you, or you can build one of your own, one where power isn't something you beg for, but something you take. And when that day comes, when you stop being the pawn and start being the player, that's when you'll understand. It was never about working harder. It was about waking up. They told you that if you worked hard, followed the rules, stayed honest, and kept your head down, you'd make it. That life would reward the good, the loyal, the dependable. But Nietzsche would call this a dangerous lie. He would call it a beautiful trap. One designed not to lift you up, but to keep you exactly where you are. Because while you sweat and sacrifice, others move in silence. Not with more effort, but with more strategy. The truth? Hard work isn't the golden ticket you've been promised. It's the leash, and the harder you pull on it, the tighter it wraps around your neck. Let's explore Nietzsche's brutal truth. Why most hard-working people stay poor, and how a twisted belief in moral labor is used to control the masses. Most people have no idea they're trapped. They think they're just paying their dues. But Nietzsche saw the trap long ago. He saw the world divided, not just into rich and poor, but into two moralities, one made by those who rule, and one made by those who obey. He called them master morality and slave morality. Master morality is built on strength. It's bold. It's creative. It doesn't wait for permission. It takes what it wants. It says, if it gives me power, freedom, and creation, it is good. It doesn't apologize for its ambition. It celebrates it. But slave morality, that's different. Slave morality comes from weakness. It's created by people who couldn't win in a world of power. So instead of rising up, they flipped the rules. They said, obedience is better than dominance. Suffering is more noble than success. Humility is the true virtue. It was never about truth. It was about survival. When you can't compete, you change the game. They made the traits of weakness look like moral strength because it was the only way to find meaning in being powerless. And once that idea spread, it became sacred. People began to believe that sacrificing without reward was the highest form of good, that being quiet, dependable, and invisible was something to be proud of. And this is how the myth of the hard-working, selfless worker was born. We glorify the person who never complains, who says yes to every request, who does their job without asking for more. But Nietzsche would tell you, that's not morality, that's manipulation. You're not being rewarded, you're being pacified. They give you just enough, a promotion, a raise, a shiny plaque, to keep you hoping, but never enough to set you free. The real power, ownership, control, influence, that stays locked away. And the more you believe that suffering is noble, the easier you are to control. Because people who think justice is coming don't rebel, they wait. They wait for recognition, for fairness, for some kind of moral reward. But here's the truth, it never comes. You keep working late. You fix problems you didn't cause. You cover for others, and someone else, someone less moral, gets ahead. Why? Because while you were being a good employee, they were learning how the game works. They were making friends in high places, understanding leverage, playing politics, and the system rewards that, not loyalty, not sacrifice. That's why. The janitor gets replaced, while the marketing guy with connections gets a bonus. That's why the nurse loses her overtime, but the hospital spends double on PR. They don't want people who think, they want people who obey. But the question is, why do so many keep believing in this system? Why do millions of good, hard-working men and women keep chasing a reward that almost never comes? The answer isn't just economic, it's psychological. It starts in childhood. From the moment you're born, you're told, be good, be honest, be patient, and the world will be fair to you. Cartoons, fairy tales, classroom rules, they all teach the same message, that if you do what's right, you'll win in the end. But this belief has a name. Psychologists call it the just world fallacy. It's the comforting lie that the world is fair, that effort equals reward, that life has a moral scoreboard. But it's not true. And holding on to that belief in a system designed to reward power, not principle, isn't just wrong, it's dangerous, because while you're staying quiet, hoping to be noticed, someone else is learning how to never wait to be chosen. While you're doubling your workload, they're skipping steps and shaking hands in private meetings. While you're being moral, they're being strategic. And in this world, strategy wins. So here's the cruel twist. The system doesn't just fail to reward your effort, it uses your belief in fairness to keep you locked in place. The more you trust the process, the more obedient you are, the easier you are to control. You won't question the low pay. You won't challenge the unfair rules. You'll keep hoping for someday. But someday never comes, because this was never about money. It's about mindset. The rules you were taught, they were never designed to create powerful people. They were made to create useful workers, workers who don't rebel, who believe in duty, who keep the machine running without ever touching the engine. The people who gave you those rules, they never followed them. They just needed someone else to play by them. So what happens when you finally see through the lie, when you realize that obedience is not a path to success? You don't throw away morality. You stop worshiping it. You stop pretending that sacrifice is a strategy, because sacrifice without power is just self-destruction. Good intentions are not a plan. In a world built on power, understanding power is part of being good. Nietzsche wasn't trying to destroy values. He was trying to free them, to free you, to make you see that the world doesn't reward the most virtuous. It rewards those who can move in the shadows while others stand in line. And once you see this, you start writing your own story, not one of blind sacrifice, but of conscious strength, not of obedience, but of ownership, not waiting for the world to change, but learning how to change your place in it. So what do you do now? You stop begging to be seen. You stop hoping for fairness in a game that was never fair, and you start building your own rules, not by becoming ruthless, but by becoming real, strong, aware, strategic. Because if you keep showing up with the wrong map, you'll never reach the right destination. They trained you to be good. Now train yourself to be powerful, not by stepping on others, but by no longer letting them step on you. This is Nietzsche's harsh truth, that the world does not belong to the most hard-working. It belongs to those who stop asking for permission. So be moral, but don't be naive. Be kind, but not blind. And never again confuse obedience with purpose. The world is not fair, but once you stop waiting for justice, you can finally begin to create it. On your terms, in your image. And that is the beginning of real freedom. You've been told all. Your life that if you just work hard, stay loyal, and follow the rules, life will eventually reward you. But Nietzsche said, wake up. Not because hard work is wrong, but because hard work without power is slavery dressed as virtue. Most people think the only way out of being used is to become cold and cruel. But that's not what Nietzsche believed. He didn't preach cruelty. He wasn't telling you to lose your heart. He was telling you to stop mistaking obedience for goodness. Stop calling submission a virtue. Stop calling sacrifice a path when it's just a leash. Nietzsche's idea wasn't to destroy morality, but to go beyond weak morality. He called it the morality of the herd, the kind of thinking that keeps strong people small, the kind that turns lions into servants and leaders into silent workers who die waiting for a thank you. He wanted you to become the Übermensch, the overman, not a monster, not a tyrant, but someone who writes their own story, someone who doesn't ask for permission to live with purpose. The overman doesn't wait for validation. He creates his own values. He doesn't obey systems. He rises above them. He doesn't ask, will they promote me? He asks, why am I even waiting? Think about it. The ones who truly rise are never just talented or lucky. They're bold. They stop asking, when will the system see my worth? And start asking, why did I give them that power over me in the first place? That shift right there is the beginning of real freedom, from waiting to creating, from surviving to leading. And yes, that shift comes at a cost. You'll have to let go of something very familiar, your need to be seen as good, that comfort of pleasing everyone, of always being liked. But the truth is, people will use that against you. The world rewards usefulness, not goodness. And when your goodness becomes your weakness, you'll stay trapped in invisible chains. Escaping the cage takes more than confidence. It takes courage. Because being strong isn't about stepping on others. It's about finally stepping into your own life. You don't need to be ruthless, but you do need to be responsible for your own power. Elon Musk was fired from a company he helped create, laughed at, dismissed, called reckless, until he created a vision so powerful the world couldn't ignore it. That wasn't luck, that was mindset, a refusal to be ruled by fear. That's what Nietzsche pointed toward, a man who doesn't live to impress, but to impact. A man who sees the system and still says, I'll go my own way. But here's the hard part. This path isn't easy, because when you stop waiting, when you finally choose to lead, you'll have to walk alone at first. You'll have to stand still while others laugh. You'll have to be okay with not being understood. That's the cost of authorship. That's the price of freedom. And no, it's not about becoming selfish. It's about becoming sovereign. So ask yourself honestly, what would happen if you stopped waiting to be picked and started picking yourself? What would your life look like if you stopped trying to get a seat at their table and built your own instead? That's the real power Nietzsche spoke of. Not power over others, but power over yourself. Power to walk away, power to say no, power to choose where your energy goes, because not every job deserves your loyalty, not every boss deserves your respect, and not every opportunity deserves your sacrifice. Sometimes the strongest move you can make is to leave. And no, leaving isn't weakness. Sometimes leaving is the beginning of real power. That isn't betrayal. That's maturity. If you don't learn how power works, you'll always be a pawn in someone else's game. Use power as a tool, not a trophy. Let your morals guide your direction, but let strategy guide your decisions. Nietzsche said it clearly. Power is not evil. It's the will to become more than a servant, more than a cog, more than just a good employee. The man who sees the system, understands it, and builds beyond it, that man doesn't just survive, he leads. So if you're done being a cog, if you're tired of being the invisible one, if you're ready to stop waiting and start writing your own future, then this is where it begins. A new kind of thinking, a new kind of power, one idea at a time, one bold decision at a time. The sad truth is, the system doesn't want you to think. It wants you to obey, to clock in, do your job, smile politely, and stay tired enough to never question your life. Hard-working people are often the most exhausted, not because they lack strength, but because their strength is being drained day after day for someone else's dream. They are praised, but only enough to keep them running, like a machine that must not break, but must also never wake up. Nietzsche saw this trap. He believed that to live authentically, a man must break the rhythm. Not just work for survival, but work with will, with vision, with rebellion in his soul. You were not born to be a slave in a polite uniform. You were not made to die in a routine. You were made to create, to destroy, to overcome. So ask yourself, is your hard work building a life, or just keeping a prison well maintained? Because if you never stop to ask, the world will bury you with compliments and chains.